Alright, so this is kind of a unique review. I usually don't review many documentaries or concert films that I see, but I made an exception for this because it's pretty well known. It was Gimme Shelter from 1970, and I actually got to see it. I haven't been able to rent it or anything like that anywhere, but I had the opportunity to go see it in the theater at the Alamo Drafthouse. So it was a really good way to see it in a theater. And if you don't know, it's a really famous documentary. It documents the Altamont concert that the Rolling Stones put on for their 1969 tour. And it's most famous because there's a big tragedy at the end of it with a couple people dying, or at least one person dying. So a lot of people know about it. It's a pretty well-known film or event in popular culture. But so I'll just kind of go through the steps of the documentary and kind of what happened with the whole concert. So this was after, it was kind of a response to how big Woodstock was, and Woodstock was in New York, so it was on the East Coast, and the Rolling Stones, they're huge at this point, and they wanted to kind of do something similar, and so they wanted to give this free concert in San Francisco. So I didn't look up where Altamont is, but it's right around the San Francisco area. Their original venue was a little too small, and then, they just expected more and more people to come. It's free, so nobody had to pay, so they're just expecting ridiculous amounts of people, and they moved it to a place called Altamont. And I thought it was really interesting because the documentary isn't just the whole concert that they play at Altamont. That's probably half of the documentary, maybe even a little less, is them actually playing. So it starts out with some pre-concert shows, which is really nice. So some other shows that they played on that tour, that 69 tour, and Mick Jagger is kind of wearing the same outfit the whole time, so you kind of tell that it is that same tour. He always wears like this top hat and like a cape and stuff, or a long scarf, I guess. But that's really nice. It just kind of starts off with some songs and them playing. And that's just really nice to see them play live, when they're younger, because obviously things get a little hectic at the concert at Altamont. So it's nice to see them just playing at a normal venue. So that's really nice. But then it also gets into the concert arrangements because, like I mentioned, there's problems with the size of the venue that they're originally going to have it. So it's actually, I really like that, showing some behind the scenes of getting the concert set up and moving locations. And it's pretty crazy. They talk about for a while about how many people they expect to get there to the concert, and that's why they moved it. And they're asking the owner of the land at Altamont how many people they can hold, and they say they're expecting over 130,000 cars to show up. And so that's not even people, that's how many cars. So they're asking him if your facility can hold that many cars, and they're talking about that for a while, and this kind of puts everything into perspective, the scope of this thing. It's ridiculous. But anyways, like I said, there's some songs that they play, and then they also show them recording the song Wild Horses at Muscle Shoals in Alabama. So that was really cool too. Muscle Shoals is a really famous recording studio. That's just kind of like a side thing that they do in the middle of the documentary. But also, I thought it's a really nice touch is that it's not just like a straight documentary of what happened. They're actually showing. So the directors are Albert and David Maisels. They have all this footage that they shot for the documentary, and they're actually showing it to the Rolling Stones. So they're playing the concert of them back to them. So you get to see the reactions. It's probably, I don't know, a couple months or so maybe after it happened. So you can see them reacting to the concert and the events of it, which is pretty cool. I didn't know that was part of the documentary, so you kind of get their perspective on everything a couple months after it happened. But so to get to the main concert, towards the middle, maybe a little after the halfway point of the documentary, they get to Altamont. It's crazy. They show some good helicopter flyovers of just the cars and people coming from all over the place. There's a couple opening bands, Jefferson Airplane, is playing, and that's when there's some trouble that starts. And like I said, it's pretty well known, but they hired the Hells Angels, the infamous motorcycle gang, to come and be security. So the Hells Angels are there being security. They actually start to fight one of the band members of Jefferson Airplane, and that gets kind of crazy. And then they show Grateful Dead landing in a helicopter, I believe, if I remember correctly. And they get word that there have been problems with the Hells Angels and that they actually were, starting some scuffles and fights with actual band members. And I think they're talking about not playing. I'm not sure if they played or not. I have a feeling they didn't. But then finally it gets to the Rolling Stones playing, and there's a lot of tension in the crowd. They have had a couple people trying to get control of like medical tents, and there's a point where they say someone had gave birth to a kid there and stuff. So kind of crazy. But right away things are getting a little nuts. You can see the Hells Angels are just beating people with pool cues, and it's pretty brutal. And they're all up on the stage, and there's this really slow buildup of tension as the concert progresses. There's just continually fights happening. They have to stop a little bit, singing, and you can just feel this tension building up because it's going to happen. It ends in a pretty horrific way, so it's just like a slow buildup of what's about to happen. And you can see the concern on the Rolling Stones' faces, the band members. You can see them just a couple points. You can see Mick Jagger, and he just looks not horrified, but just super. I don't know how to describe his face. It's kind of like what is happening, and because there's just people fighting, and these Hells Angels are beating people up continuously, and so then it ultimately leads to a person is stabbed to death, and they show. You don't really see it too much, but you just see a bunch of the Hells Angels get into the crowd, go after pretty much one guy, and then it's kind of over. But then, like I'd mentioned, the way the documentary is made is the actual Rolling Stones are watching this footage, and so they ask him, could you rewind that? And they show them rewind the footage, and the directors are like, okay, yeah, you can see it here. And they point out in the video, they say, look against this girl's like white shirt, and you can see the guy that eventually got stabbed and died. You can see him pulling out a gun, and he has a gun, and he's aiming at someone. You can't really tell. It doesn't look like he's really aiming at like the Rolling Stones. I'm guessing he's aiming at one of the Hells Angels, but he clearly has a gun. You can see it come out, and it's like they said, it's against the girl's white shirt, and that's the guy they stabbed and killed. So I mean, you can't say it was justified, but he did have a gun, and they were going after him. So it's just really weird, and it's pretty horrific. Actually, they have footage of that, and you don't see a ton of like blood or anything, but you can kind of see like the motions of them going after him, and they show him later on a stretcher and stuff, and it's really intense. And I was like kind of not expecting that to be that vivid, and it's real. I mean, it's pretty crazy. So as sad as that is, and that's a pretty bad thing to happen, it's overall it's a really good documentary. I gave it a 4.25 out of 5. It's in the music lore, and it's just a pop culture event that everybody kind of remembers from that era. It was like Woodstock gone really bad, and so if you like the Rolling Stones, it's good to see that part of their history, or if you just really like music and documentaries. So definitely check it out. It's worth a watch. Just a couple other movie connections. There's a couple other similar documentaries. The one I've seen was the Monterey Pop. That was from 1968, so that was another big music festival. That one didn't have any tragedy associated with it or anything, but that's a really good one. A lot of good bands. I was in California, so that one's good. And then, of course, there's a good Woodstock documentary from 1970, which I haven't seen yet, but hopefully I will soon. So those two are very similar. So yeah, if you like the Rolling Stones, if you like music and documentaries, definitely it's worth a watch. So I'd say check it out if you can. All right.